Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first discussion of The Judging Eye, which is the first book of the Aspect Emperor series by R. Scott Baker, or the fourth book in the second apocalypse, as I prefer to think about it. Uh, yeah, today we're discussing chapters 1 to 4, and next week we'll continue on to the next 100 pages, how many ever chapters that is, if you're reading along with us. Did we decide? We didn't talk about this before we started recording, but I guess we'll go up to chapter 9, probably. Sorry, we usually decide before we start recording, but yeah, up to chapter 9 for next week. With me, the usual group of friends. Steve, would you like to start us off with introductions?
Sure, I'm Steve, and part of my voice, thinking I might be losing it, but I'm happy to be here and happy to talk about the Judging Eye.
I'm Carl, first time reader of this series, and yeah, 5 through 8 sounds good to me.
And I'm Justin, and also first time reader of The Judging Eye.
Nice. Yeah.
And Justin, don't forget to plug your website, and Carl, your book.
Oh, yeah, you can find Truth or Crowns. Just look up Truth or Crowns. I mean, I think you'll find it.
That's what I did. So.
There you go. Boom. Not too hard. Yeah.
And I sometimes write on midnightmovietrain.com.
Nice.
I also looked it up. I looked at that. I had it pulled up and I was like scrolling through. I was like, there we are. Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah, so we start 20 years in the future with a letter that kind of confirms what we suspected from one of the epigraphs that Akamian wrote, that Kellus is basically a tyrant now and is ruling with an iron fist and hates anyone who speaks against him and will destroy them. And there are judges who do so. So, question for the group: what is the judging eye? Do we know yet?
Oh no, I just assume we'll figure that out as we go along. I haven't given that much thought, I'll be honest.
We don't know yet, but we'll find out.
Okay.
Ooh.
I thought we had a couple of possibilities. Maybe the judges with I don't know, who we haven't seen exactly what they do yet, but they're basically the truth police, I guess, of this world. And Mimara. Yeah. Her vision, in which she sees that Akamian's damned, or she can see how pure or not someone is. I thought one of those might be related to the judging eye, but we will see. Speaking of, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Can we start actually with the what came before? What has come before?
Oh,
which
yeah.
is at the end of, I guess, at least the copies Justin and I have, because it is crazy and it does, talk. I mean, there wasn't a lot I would say that was new after reading the appendices of the Thousandfold Thought, but it definitely was like, it was interesting seeing it all laid out and like put so much more bluntly, I guess you could say, the history and kind of the timeline of everything. And it's also interesting because it's written with a very particular voice that made me wonder, we speculated in our episode on the appendices, is this written by a Akamian? I think we kind of all agreed that's what it seems like. And so I was curious, what sort of the point of view you could say of what has come before, like what it is. Because I don't know, it just had a really distinct voice to me. And so I wasn't sure if that was just Baker having fun with it, or if there is like it too is sort of a meta document in a sense.
I don't know the answer to that, but there is something interesting here where it says that Kellus went mad. What he did not know, could not know, was that Kellus would see farther than him, that he would think beyond his thousandfold thought and go mad. So since this document is apparently a statement of facts, did Kellus in fact go mad?
It was so interesting. Yeah, that was the thing that stood out to me the most, is that was how it was referred to. And part of the reason why I asked about, like, the point of view thing is I was like thinking, like, is this like a Dunyan scholar writing this, in the future? I mean, I have no idea, I'm just like completely spitballing here. But yeah, it's interesting that it like explicitly calls Kellis mad for his visions, which, again, sounds very objective for this like recap that I wasn't certain that, I felt like it was very vague about how we should interpret Kellis's mental state at the end of the Thousandfold Thought. So yeah, that was really interesting.
Yeah, I completely agree. That was the bit that stuck out to me like a sore thumb at reading this, what has come before, just like that, in that very authoritative voice where it wasn't, I don't know, it feels tonally maybe a little different than the appendices or the glossary from the Thousandfold Thought. Like it feels very objective, like authoritative, like Kellis is mad, but and maybe that is the voice, and maybe it's right or wrong, who knows, but yeah.
There is something else in that section that before his death, the barbarian revealed the truths to Drusus Acamian, but harbored heartbreaking suspicions of his own. So it does seem to suggest that Nora is dead. But I have to wonder, is this written before? Like, is this written now as we're reading this book, or is this written later?
Yeah, right.
So
what is the
what would you all think?
Here? Yeah.
I was a little crestfallen at that part because part of me, though I think it's kind of perfect and like that Nair would be dead, maybe, but it also was sort of vague at the end of the last book where it just said something like darkness enshrouded them. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
We never saw a body, right?
Right.
So there definitely there was the possibility that he could have survived. I felt like it was like that's the ending for him. But I also felt, he was such an interesting character where like there were multiple times over the trilogy where I almost was like, his story could end here and I would be pretty satisfied with it. Like I remember distinctly in The Warrior Prophet, the scene on the beach where like Kellis is even thinking about killing him. And for whatever reason, he like feels this emotional pull to not. And so he spares Nair. But, there continue to be new interesting pathways for his character. And so I was a little hopeful too, but it seems like it's the end, at least as of the first 100 pages of The Judging Eye.
Yeah, I feel like Bakker really like trained me to like hold on through the character of Nair, it seemed like the end for him more than a couple times, and it would have felt, like you said, it would have felt okay, but it's yeah. I don't know, I want more, but also I'm okay with letting go.
Right. He was such a great character, and he just, again, continued to develop in really interesting ways and added a level of unpredictability to everything. Like you were never sure quite like what he was going to do next, whose side he was really on, other than obviously his own. And even then, he sort of self-sabotages a lot too. So, again, he's so unpredictable. And I'm very curious to see if someone sort of fills that role in this quadrilogy, if there's like an X Factor character, because so far there are a lot of really interesting characters who have really interesting point of views that I'm curious to see more out of, but there's no one who I'm like, I have no idea what they're going to do. Like so far I've like, I feel like I have a handle on things. I guess Kellis kind of, because Kellis, and we know what he's attempting, but like the question of, is he mad or not? I am still unsure about.
So the other thing that I realized we didn't really have an answer to, or at least I didn't figure out, is why the consult wanted to go to Shime, why they were invested in the Holy War. At first, I thought it was just so a lot of people would die, and so they'd get the thing they wanted, which is to kill enough people that they can, plug off the outside. But was there some other purpose to it? Why Shime specifically? Why not just have the Holy War happen?
That's where the
And that's it.
Ch.4 were based out of. So they wanted to eliminate them, was kind of the idea. Because Moingus had discovered then was in them, it was like, okay, we're sending the army to go, all the Enrithi will go wipe them out, which is what happened at the end, is my understanding. I mean, I'm sure there are a few, surviving in like little shadowy corners, but I think generally they were like destroyed as an institution.
So the consult wanted the Caesareum destroyed because Moingus was Caesareum and he had been using said institution to trap them and ask questions.
And had identified the skin spies and everything. Yeah.
Okay. And the other question I had was it Kelmamis with the prophecy that an Anasurimbor will come back? So what did happen to all the Anasurimbor? Like his son was dead and he was dying. So did they just die out? Like where were the Anasurimbor supposed to come back from? Or was it a side thread that wasn't living there? Was it not a direct descendant of Kelmamis that was the boy in Ishwal in the prologue of the first book?
Yeah, that was one of his sons, I believe.
It was one of his sons.
Was that one of Kelmomis' sons? I'd have to reread it. I don't know. Does it tell us? I guess I just assumed it was not one of now Kayudi's, like related to him. And part of that is it actually comes up. I forget in what context here. I think it's Akamian literally thinks about it. The mystery of like Ch.4 explicitly we know now had an affair with the concubine, right? The favorite concubine. And so the whole idea of the Anasurimbor line maybe ended, and it's just a name, you know, in terms of like the literal like blood of it all. And so the prophecy itself, in a sense, is false, depending on your point of view, right? I mean, it's interesting, especially coming from this like Dunyan background where blood and like genetics are so important. You know, they're very eugenics-y, and they, you know, that this like the Anasurimbor bloodline, like potentially it seems very likely ended with Kelmomis. I mean, I guess there are cousins and shit, so I guess it depends, yeah, who Kellis is, how that descent works. I don't know if we know the bloodline exactly, the family tree.
Mm.
Well, the Anasurimbor come to the castle, right, in the prologue, because they come and they find the boy in the beginning of the prologue. So the Dunyan, sorry, yeah. So
yeah, so I guess it depends on if he's like this, you know, if he's the son of now Kayuti or the son of. I guess it's probably too late for him to be the son of Kelmomis because of the length of the war with the consult, so or the apocalypse.
Was the prologue the prologue, was that during the first apocalypse or after the first apocalypse?
I think it's like at the very end, maybe after. Yeah, maybe like immediately after.
Mm.
Yeah, because the Dunyan are also, I think, kind of portrayed as refugees from the apocalypse too. So, well, I guess it could be going on.
Definitely, yeah.
So Anasurimbor Gandrelka, High King of Kuniuri. So what was that the place that was that the seat of the Anasurimbor, or was this a branch that had like a little side kingdom or something?
We do know that Ishwal is like a safe haven for them. It's like a refuge. It's explicitly referred to as the in. I forget if it's a thousandfold thought or in the first 100 pages here, but I distinctly remember reading that like it's defined as like it's this like little fortress, you know, place for them to like hide away in, and so that's, you know, after their city fell, that's where I guess the last of them went.
Helm's Deep.
Yeah, exactly. It's Helm's Deep, exactly.
Oh. Wait, okay, sorry. I'm going to jump ahead to something way in the judging eye for just a minute, and then we can go about it in order. But the name that Akamian gets from his wanderings of Ch.4's dream to figure out what he can find about the Dunyan, the name that's told is Ishwal, and I didn't remember at the time that this was the stronghold of the secret refuge of the Kuniurik High Kings. I'm reading from the prologue of the first book, but Ch.4 knew about the Dunyan, it seems like, in some form, and he knew that they were going to take refuge in Ishwal. Because that's the name that came up for them. Anyway,
oh yeah, you're right. So, I mean, he had to have known, right, if for him to even think about that. So that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the glossary, it mentions for 2,000 years the Dunyani have hidden in the ancient fortress of Ishwal, breeding their members for motor reflexes and intellectual acuity.
Mm.
So that's interesting. If Ch.4 did know of them,
Yeah, and it's not that he wandered into knowledge of them for some reason. Like in my brain, Ishbal had just become the Dunyan place, and it is now, but it wasn't always. They just
Right.
came to take refuge there. And given that, the fact that Seshwata knew to connect the Dunyan with these guys, with that place, is interesting. Assuming that's what knowing that name means. Uh,
They're described, I remember in the prologue, as like everyone forgot them,
mhm.
And so it's interesting that I'm so curious about his Seswatha's like point of view with them. Like, were they just so minor in the grand scheme of things that he just was like, it was a thing he knew but he didn't think much of? Or
Mm.
I mean, you would think it would be like, if he knew they came to where the last Anasurim board was, that would be something he would be interested in, considering the prophecy, assuming the prophecy isn't fake. Because again, we've seen that dreams can change now, right? So I don't know how that impacts things. Although I did get the sense that that was a new occurrence and at the end of the thousandfold thought, and wasn't necessarily something that happened. Who knows? Well, I guess we'll find out.
I think isn't Akamian sort of implying that there's a selectivity to the dreams that they see. They're not. They used to think that they are reliving Seshwata's life. No, I guess they don't. The mandate philosophers and scholars have been documenting how they don't dream about the mundane aspects of Seshwata's life. So there is some selectivity to the dream. So he may have hidden even important things for whatever reason. Right? Like it is a little creepy that they only see what he wants them to see from controlling this whole school of powerful sorcerers across time and space like that. It's insane. But yeah, I think yeah, that gave me goosebumps, the thought that he's that there is some control, obviously not like over the course of time, but just whatever's in the heart, it's all of it is there, but they dream selectively only the events of the apocalypse until whatever happened to Akamian happens to Sorceress, and then they see the other mundane aspects of his life.
Do you think if they have just like, they get really bad food poisoning, they have nightmares of like a day Seswatha had like really bad food poisoning?
Seems not. It seems they still get to dream about dragons and
That's probably the better, like it all becomes more of a metaphor then than them like having to relive their horrible daytime existence at night too.
like he says, like the old mandate joke goes, so Ch.4 don't shit.
Yeah, that's right.
yeah. So those were my two outstanding questions from the previous. Like I kept confusing myself with the answers, but and it's not. I mean, I haven't read far enough ahead in the prologue again, but it's not clear whether Gandrelka is a descendant of Kelmomis, which would make it unclear whether he is Anasurimbor or not.
Because there definitely were multiple lines, right? Like we're told of different. I'm blanking now too. Is Inoxophis, is he an Anasurim board too?
I don't think so. I think he
Just a
was
different
some other
king.
hiking. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not like the exact same thing as like, okay, no, never mind. Okay, cool.
What?
I was just gonna like again make the Lord of the Rings comparison again, but then I realized like Aragorn isn't prophesied to like destroy Sauron. Like that's not how the story works. So although I mean there is like a prophecy about him coming back and being king and everything, but anyway, not important.
So Kellis is what's his name? What name did he just say, Carl? Why can't I remember it? Arathon. Yes. What, you take one of my favorite characters in fiction and compare him to Kellis.
Yeah, well, he is. He's like Aragorn meets Paul Atreides turned into your worst nightmare.
Just wait.
Oh my god.
Oh, I love it. Oh god.
He's Bizarro Aragorn.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
like how Steve has been menacingly telling us, just wait. Just wait. Every time I complain to him about something getting bad, he's like, no, just wait. You haven't even seen anything yet.
We're just getting started.
Oh God. Talking about something that I mean, yeah, it was already, these opening 100 pages were brutal in a very like just emotionally powerful way. You know, everything from like Mimara and Akamian and their where we read up to. I knew that's where it was going to go. I knew it. I the instant she went to Akamian and was like, "Teach me magic," I was like, "Oh God, they're going to sleep together." Oh no, because this is that type of story, unfortunately. But I didn't want it to happen. I was just hoping beyond hope, and then it did, and it was horrible. And she's an interesting character, right? Where she is like a firm believer in all the Kellis of it all, and you know she's quite religious. She's full of self-loathing, but very judgmental. Yeah, I mean, she just felt like instantly. I was like, this is a very complex, interesting character, and I definitely felt bad for her too. You have to wonder if Kellis sent her, you know, if not literally directly, if that was part of his shortest path, right? Was he was like, she's how we deal with Akamian, or whatever he plans for Akamian. It's like we use Mimara.
Yeah. I enjoyed the little bit of you know, like Nair and Akamian now, you know, that exists now that Nair's infected him with you know, he's an honest emperor, and he watches you know, always watching, and he's, yeah, when he accuses her of just like, he sent you, and then she's like, no, he didn't, and he's like, oh yeah, he definitely sent you.
Yeah,
You just don't know it, you know, like
exactly. That's that Kellis magic right there.
So, assuming that Kellis did send her, you would think if he wants Akamian dead, he would kill him pretty easily, right? If he knows where he is, Kellis, he's... So you have to wonder if Kellis did send her, what is his goal in
Right.
sending her?
That's the mystery, because it doesn't seem like of all people. I mean, I don't know. Like, maybe he could like strategic, like do his computations and be like, they will have a falling out and she will kill him. But I don't feel like that's the case. I feel like whatever his intent was for her and Akamian, there's more to it than just like time to like kick him off the board, you know?
Yeah. I mean, with Esmenet, I feel like we speculated about what he wanted from her and ultimately turned out, I don't know, she's just smart enough to be, I mean, to bear children for him. And it turns out that's true somehow. Maybe he can read all the physical signs or something, but it turns out that she's managed to have one or two normal feeling children, and others have gone mad over the course of the years. But with Akamian, I don't know, like, what does he want from him? What is left that he can possibly take from Akamian? He has the gnosis. He can teleport now, so he's transcended what Akamian knew with the gnosis. So what does he want from him now if he did in fact send him?
I mean, I suspect that he still feels he has further use for Akamian, you know, because Akamian is still anti-consult, and he's, you know, an extremely powerful ally, like probably more powerful than the Mandate would care to admit. I mean, the way he channels Ch.4 at times, like he's maybe the most powerful Mandate sorcerer besides Kellis himself at this point. I don't know. That's pure speculation, but it's like, you know, if Kellis wanted him dead, he'd be dead. I feel like.
Yeah.
You gotta have it for him.
I wonder too if it's maybe like, you know, we know Mimara, there were issues trying to get her like training, and so if it's maybe even as simple as like, well, I know Kellis can, or not Kellis, I know Akamian can like train someone, you know, and like get it done, and he won't be able to help himself with her, so that's the path, right? And he's like, I can use Mimara, like she's a tool for me. I'm also curious now that like we have these female magic schools. What happens if they, like a woman, does the Ch.4 heart bullshit of it all? You know, like how do the memories impact a woman? You know, like is there any like what you know, what's that like? Is the magic any different for them? Are the dreams any different from them? Because as far as we know, right, there hasn't been any women who've been mandate school men, right? Like, yeah, I don't know if that impacts things at all.
Yeah, I also, that made me think of, I thought of that as soon as, you know, she wanted Akamian to teach her the Gnosis. And then I thought of Kellis and how he never did I can't remember what that rite is called, where they, you know, hold the mummified heart of Ch.4 and absorb some cants or something. But yeah, like what, aside from imbuing people with Ch.4's dreams, like I was for some reason thinking like that was a critical part of being a mandate schoolman, but the grasping, thank you. But evidently not.
Right.
So they need it.
So, do you think Kellis knew that Akami wouldn't be able to help himself in more than one way? I mean,
100%. 100%.
that's really
Horrible
creepy.
thing. I mean, this is the guy who went in and immediately was like, he knew he was going to like effectively cuckold Akamian, and was like, this was like he's you know, playing 4D chess while everyone else is playing regular chess. Like it's just, it's horrible, and I hate him. I mean, he's fun to watch, but he's the worst. I, on kind of the note of all of this, of the mandate and dreams and Kellis, also rewinding a bit to like talking about, you know, the nature of like the Anasaurian line, the bloodline specifically, you would think Kellis would be exposed to the possibility, if not explicitly figuring out, unless somehow he's like skirted around those specific dreams, that he may not be literally descended from Kelmomus, and that the Anasaurian bloodline may have ended with now Coyote. I mean, again, it's unclear exactly what the family tree looks like, but like I'm curious what his thoughts are on that, because he's been living with the dreams long enough now that like that wouldn't be like, that seems like something that he would have a dream about, you know, that he would think of the Ch.4's affair with the concubine whose name I'm blanking on at the moment.
Isn't that explicitly discussed in these 100 pages, that he starts on that path of doubt on whether or not now Coyote is Kelmomus?
Akamian does, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, did you mean someone else?
Kellis.
Sorry.
Kellis himself. Like I feel like that would have an impact on him. Maybe not in like as powerful a way. Like I don't know that it would change his plans, but so much of this image, his madness, right? His madness in quotes, that he's built up around himself, that he is this son of God. You know, part of it is that he has this prophecy about him, that he's supposed to be the weapon against the no god and the consult, right? That he is this from the line of Anasaurian Boar. And it's not taken in a way where it's like, oh, it's just a name, right? You know, this isn't like a very modern, like, oh, you know, you're adopted, whatever, like you're one of them, right? Like this is like bloodline eugenics bullshit, right? And so that matters to him in his point of view. And so I feel like if he found that out, that would actually bother him, is what I'm saying. And so I'm curious if he's actually encountered that dream, that possibility, or if he has. I don't think he would be able to ignore it. Like he's too smart. Like his arrogance would not stop him. He is too calculating for that, I feel like. So I'm curious if he has dreamed those dreams.
Has he been dreaming? Do you think he did the grasping ceremony thing to start dreaming?
Oh, I guess we don't know. I felt like he never did he? So I don't know.
He could have, now that he's down with the mandate, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess that's unclear, right? If he ever did the grasping.
He learned the Gnosis. I think that's the extent of what happened there that we know of. We don't know if he did anything else that would make him a mandate schoolman. But
am I so he definitely didn't do the grasping in the original trilogy, but I feel like he had a vision of the apocalypse. Or am I misremembering? Was that strictly Acamian, or did Kellis also have a vision
Of the
of the apocalypse specifically?
I don't think so.
Okay, so he
I might
may
be
not have
wrong.
done it then.
I don't recall that. The only vision proper that I remember him having is that, like, when he goes into that meditative trance and he sees his circumfixion and some other things. But that was it.
It does then make. I mean, if I was him, I would definitely do the grasping, right? Like that's a tool he could use. It seems odd if he hasn't done it over the 20 years, but maybe
But
not.
it's in exchange for permanent nightmares, though.
Right. I just
May-
feel like he is the type of person who would think he could control his reactions, and that it would be extremely helpful for him to personally experience Ch.4's memories, you know? Because that's kind of the secret behind beating the enemy. Beyond making a giant army of sorcerers and soldiers to go walk up and stomp over everything.
Yeah. Now that would be interesting. I'm wondering though, like the fact that he's not actually God's son did not prevent him from declaring himself a warrior prophet and taking on this mantle of godhood. So whatever he's doing now, he's in it. So I yeah, I am curious to see what if he does dream or if he finds out, let's say he's not a descendant of let's say he's not Anasurimbor, what that would do to him. But I feel like he's on this path now to do whatever he's doing to
Well, yeah, I
kill the
agree. It wouldn't
consort.
stop him, but I do think it would impact him. Like he's definitely not someone who's like gonna take no for an answer. Like he's committed. He's doing this thing. He's mad, right? And I guess that's the biggest point to him being like mad in some sense is that he seemingly calls himself the son of God, right? Like not just Moingus. Like he knows Moingus is literally his father, but at the same time he thinks there's this divine aspect to him.
Do you think he believes that? Do you think he believes that he's actually divine? Or is
I mean,
he
that
just
was unclear to me, but I don't know, the vibe I kind of get from everything after his conversation with Moingus is that like maybe he kind of does, like maybe not in the most literal sense. Like I think he knows, Moingus literally sired him like physically, but that there was an essence of godhood that has been infused in him. However that works, right?
He does have
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Justin. I was just gonna say he has a hell of an entrance when he enters the castle. It was fun seeing the battle from the other side and seeing all the siege war, like all the warfare, like everything coming towards and it's just like the sense of like doom,
Yeah.
and he's like, and everyone seems to think of him almost like as a god, as this divine figure that can't be stopped, even though they fought. he didn't surrender, but you kind of get the feeling like he knew he was gonna lose.
Oh, 100%. That was the other really powerful thing for me. It was the Mimara and Acamian stuff, and then that whole sequence with these characters that were, just now introduced to, that it was so sad reading it. And I thought all the little details down to like Proyas being just like so sad and old and tired, and like, no, he's been here before. Like he's seen this. He knows how this ends. And he tries to get the guy to just accept that you're not going to win here. But he's too proud and he feels like too loyal to his people to just like give up and, roll over. It's so sad, so tragic.
So is loyalty to your people fighting and getting a lot of them killed, or is it saying, okay, we'll lay down arms, we'll join you? Is that which is more loyal?
I mean, I think he should have, probably surrendered I think that would have been the right move, but I think he certainly felt that that was morally wrong for him to do. I don't think it was just, I mean, I think you could argue deep down it's like pride to some degree. Pride definitely played a role. But I also got the sense that the king genuinely felt like this was like his duty as king, you know? And it was that extra element of like duty, I think is the right word, that made it so sad for me. And then, of course, that we see it all through his son's eyes. And then, you know, the cherry on top is Callus at the end beginning to brainwash his son and like act so kind. And you're like, oh, if this was anyone else, I would be like, wow, this is actually a really like interesting like person who like actually feels bad about everything he's doing. And then, you know, if you saw it from his perspective, is like he doesn't feel, he doesn't, he's just, it's just cold, just blank, hollow.
Well, and I think, Steve, to your question too, like there's a reference to Kellis by the king as being from the outside, or like being some kind of, you know, some kind of demon maybe, or so like perhaps he truly feels, you know, perhaps he truly thinks that, and that like, you know, Kellis is some sort of evil force, so he feels he must stand and fight. So
Absolutely. I mean, the kid seemed really convinced of it, right? And so I don't know why the dad, even with the like the added potential cynicism of years, like I mean, I don't blame him either. I mean, you see this guy who's like flying around, like flinging lightning bolts and shit, and like conquering everything, and you're like, yeah, like that guy's a demon, like, you know. It's that, or accepting, you know, that like he is like divine in some way, right? And even though the reality is that, you know, he's not, he's really neither, probably, right? But certainly from their worldview, like it makes sense.
Yeah. So do you think we'll see more of Sorva, who's named very much like Survey for some reason? But
Wait,
yeah,
are we talking about Surwa? There's Surwa, who is one of the daughters, and then Sorwheel.
yeah, they call him Sorva for short, um, as the pet
Oh,
name, right? Yeah,
that's right. You're right. That's right. That's what his father calls him, right?
yeah.
I hope so, because I'm attached to him now.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think we've not seen the last of him.
So the kid we saw in the prologue of this book, he was creepy, right? Calmomus with a K, and pretending to love Espenet, which I mean, I guess he really does, and
I
that
definitely got the feeling he did.
yeah,
Like he legitimately loves his mom. He just also is like, he's like a sociopath, like naturally too,
yeah.
you know. And like sociopaths can feel love. It's
Mm.
just like the way they like interact with the world and feel things is different than, you know, most people.
Mm. So he has a little voice telling him to drive his sister away, how to manipulate his mother into giving him more affection, which is interesting that he wants affection. And so it's like, yeah, this kid is a very interesting character because he's like a callus who can actually feel sometimes, and other times is just going to manipulate the heck out of you, which makes him somehow extra creepy.
So, this voice that he's hearing, who do you think it might be?
The no god. I'm kidding. Like, I mean, it feels very similar to what Kellis has been hearing, except I don't know if he hears it to this extent. I I know the voice. It's supposed to sound like an inner voice. That's how it's written, and maybe it's to lull us into this false sense of, I don't know, into thinking that it's just his inner demons talking to him like that. But I feel like that's actually a presence. That's an actual presence that's talking to him. But yeah,
That's the thing with fantasy, right?
yeah,
You never know. Is like, is it just the character's inner voice, like one of their inner voices, or is this like a voice inside them?
yeah.
I definitely feel like if it is like some external force existing inside him, it's the same thing that is talking to Kellis, because we know Kellis hears a voice, including the no god, but possibly multiple voices. Because to me, I want to elaborate on that just a little bit. I feel like Kellis, to me, it seems unlikely that he's being manipulated by the no god, because the no god seems senile. Like, you know, I feel like the no god is not of a state of mind to manipulate people, right? So I feel like it's something else. But maybe, you know, maybe I'm just misunderstanding what the no god's deal is.
But we only saw him in that moment of being awakened, right? When he says, "Where am I? What is this place?" and whatever other questions he's asking. It's more disorientation than senile. No, at least we don't know that that's how he is all the time. We only saw him at the moments of waking up.
I guess, but I just feel like the no god was around long enough that, like, the no god wasn't awake for like a few minutes. The no god was around for a while, long enough that babies died, you know, in mass. And so despite that, Akamian only thinks of those same questions. And then when Kellis does have his visions, it's also of those questions. So to me, that's what made it seem like senility, is like, I got the sense that this was a consistent, like a through line for the no god, that like there's a level of where he's just so far gone in whatever sense, you know. Like maybe senile isn't the right word. I mean, there's everything around the no god is really vague at this point, but I feel like it wasn't just that specific moment of waking up that we're hearing. I feel like this is a consistent thing for him, including up to his moment of death, right?
Possibly, yep. So if it is the no god, I don't know why it would be such low scale manipulation of
Right.
getting rid of the sister and whatnot. Or
Exactly.
it could be like a fragment of some sort of evil that is talking to Kelmomus. But yeah. But
That
now
poor beetle.
Sorry,
The poor
who?
beetle.
Yeah, the poor beetle. Now I'm intrigued because Steve phrased the question as who is that? So it must be an external entity, right?
Maybe it's him.
Playing games with us. He and Dan sometimes, I've noticed Dan especially will like ask leading questions, and sometimes just to mess with us.
Steve's picking that up. Huh? No poker
Yeah.
for you too, Steve.
You got to throw it for Dan.
Oh man. So
Well, sorry, unless you're going to say something more about Momus while we're on this topic, I do have a little more I want to talk about with him. First off, clear Dune not here, giving me big Alia vibes. So I appreciate, you know, him. I love creepy children is what I'm getting at. I think creepy children are fun. Before we're getting on, we're talking about horror. One of my favorite horror tropes, creepy children. I love it. Sidestepping that. Oh, wow. What was I going to say? I'm totally blanking. That's embarrassing after stopping everything. Como is definitely a sociopath. I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with it. He's ripping legs off of beetles, you know, doesn't really feel things, but loves his mom. He's a sociopath. And I do wonder if he's like, if that's, I guess we'll see where he goes, you know, because the whole idea that he is like tainted Dunyan blood, right? Like Mathanet. So he's like not perfect in a sense, you know, it makes me curious to see what he could become. Although knowing the series, nothing good.
Yeah, I like the way he's, you know, like you open on him, like pulling the legs off of an insect, and then he's sort of like idly toying with Esmanet's emotions all the time, right? Like he has this like really preternatural ability to understand and to push her buttons, and at the same time he's emotional. So he's like very carelessly, thoughtlessly, always kind of toying with her because he can, not in a malicious way, just like with the beetle, where he's kind of just like blithely amused by it, and that's really horrifying. That's the sociopathic like aspect to it. Yeah.
And he's amused, and he's also like trying to understand things, right? It's like this like insane intelligence combined with this just like callousness, right? And beyond callousness, it's that like sociopathic joy out of like hurting things, that like that's what it takes to get like to feel something, right? Like you read about like serial killers talking about how it like became this like urge for them because it was like the only way for them to like feel pleasure was to like do commit horrible acts, and that's sort of the vibe it gives. Definitely makes me very nervous about this child, in contrast to his sweet half-wit brother Samarmas, who is just hugging everyone and giving everyone kisses. And at first I was unclear if like, is he actually a half-wit or is he just like not a super genius like his siblings? But it does seem like he's like, slow, and very sweet, and he deserves so much better than the family he's in.
Kind of wonder now on a reread if that's a reference to Samwise Gamgee, because he seems a little
Oh,
yeah, that we're talking about it. Sammy, poor little Sammy.
yeah, his name's Sam, right? That's interesting. What an interesting little that has to be intentional, right? That he's like the pure-hearted. Oh, interesting.
Is that so? The voice that Calmumus is hearing, how their souls were separated at childhood, apparently. Oh my god! Also, the image of these two babies just constantly staring at each other in their cradle. What?
They're doing yang.
For me, the most affecting section of this whole first 100 pages was Esmonette and the horror of her children, like how like how she fears so many of her children in so many different ways, and then the 8-limbed child with no eyes that was born, and the number of surrogate mothers that bore these like I don't know, like really malformed, like poor pitiful things that were drowned at birth. Like that stuff was pure. That's like some pure psychological horror to me. Like the mother who like fears her offspring, and like
absolutely,
yeah.
And, oh god, yeah. She really did just trade one like horrible existence for another, right? But both where she's like in a sense, like she's like like as a prostitute, like for a lot of her, I mean, she was sold into it, which is horrible. But at a certain point, she took agency for herself, right? In the same way now with Kellis, where like she went willingly to be Kellis's wife, kind of, but also because she felt like she had no other choice, like when she was a prostitute. So it's like she's like kind of like just upscaled, I mean, she's like so much more powerful now, but it's sort of the same trap. It's just like a gilded cage now. It's really sad.
Mm-hmm.
Did she make the choice to be with Kellis? Because she could have gone with the commune.
I mean, that's the moment I would say that she definitely made the choice. Where I mean, again, like under pressure. One, she had Kellis's kid, and two, she very rightfully was afraid she would be killed.
Kellis is going to be Kellis,
yeah. So
he's not going to be cool with that.
Yeah, I don't blame her, certainly.
Kellis isn't about to be re-cuckolded.
No.
Back to what I was saying about Kelmumus and Sam-ish. I don't know the rest of his name. Sam something or the other. Samarmas. Do you think the voice in his head is whatever evil they excised out of Sam? I guess he's a pure, sweet child, and some bit of Sam is also in Kelmumus, making him do more evil than he might.
That's what I was going to say. Okay, sorry. This is on this subject. So I was reading and kind of like researching how back in the day, like in the Middle Ages, particularly in the early like Renaissance period, how people thought of like devils and like demons and Satan, and where it's like kind of taken you know, like it was a common belief that like they're a part of life, but like they didn't appear like we view them in pop culture, where they're, you know, like Satan in particular is like, you know, red horn demon, you know, pointy tail, like trident, all that shit. Like they were invisible spirits. They did not physically like represent themselves. It was something that like you would hear a voice, right? So like obviously, you know, the common thing was thinking of like someone who's like schizophrenic, and they would be, which like if you look at schizophrenic people today, they think like demons are talking to them and like angels and shit. Like this is a very real thing, but like people outside of them also thought that in, you know, the Middle Ages. And so I think it's really interesting, again, the way that he can like Bakker continues to take sort of history and like biblical mythology and like the beliefs, like taking these sort of you know, medieval Christian experiences and like playing with them. It's really interesting. And I don't know. I'm very curious to see if Sam has like Dunyan shit going on, but he's just like too sweet and simple to like make use of it. Like I'm wondering if we ever get in his head, like, can he read people too? You know? Like, does he have those gifts too? Or does he hear that voice? Like maybe he hears the voice too and he just doesn't care, you know? Like he's like, oh, it wants me to like manipulate my half sister. No, thank you. Like I'd rather hug her instead.
Maybe that's what the voice is telling him to do. Hug people.
This is the way.
Oh man, there was something I was gonna say and I forgot. Oh yeah, I remember. So the whole horror with the 13 or 14 women who had the 8-limbed children who needed to be drowned in wine and salt or whatever, that also I think was a great way to tell us just how different the Dunyan must be now genetically from humans, because humans can't have Dunyan children anymore. But then Maithanet was born, so I guess only some women can.
It definitely feels like a supernatural thing.
Yeah.
Like I can't like wrap my head around, like obviously from like a fantasy perspective, like this is like in a storytelling, like dramatic perspective, this is like a really compelling thing, right? That like, you know, monster babies and like, you know, that like it kills women to like have his child and things like that, and that it, you know, but I do just feel like, I mean, I just can't wrap my head around like how could they be that genetically different that like this is what happens. Although again, it makes you wonder, you know, there's sort of an equivalent. I mean, I'm not going to get too detailed, but like in a Song of Ice and Fire, there are like sometimes half like reptilian dragon babies born from women who have certain blood heritage. And I think, you know, that is playing to a very obvious like kind of trope of this idea that like there's magic in the blood, right? And like questions of the incest involved and all that is like fucked up and weird. And like what's going on here where there's like, yeah, the children come out looking monstrous. Like what's going on in their bloodline where that is something that is happening here, you know? Like what are the Dunyan doing that is making it so that they have babies born who come out, yeah, like some weird monstrosity.
Yeah. And is it just the Dunyan blood that's doing that, or is the possession by no god? I don't know if he's possessed, but like
Right.
whatever internet connection he has going on with the no god, is that what's doing the monstrous babies?
I do feel like it has to be the magic, right? I don't think it's the Dunyan thing, because it doesn't seem like Moingus had that problem. Like we were talking about Maithanet, and we don't know anything about Maithanet's mom. I mean, that's kind of a big black hole in the story right now. But it wouldn't surprise me if, yeah, you're right. It's like a magic thing. It's not their eugenics.
Yeah, that's fair.
What did you all think of In Realitas, or pronounce it?
The mad
Spooky
son?
and sad.
Yeah.
Bakker continues to again infuse his stories with a lot of horror elements that I appreciate.
Just wait. I couldn't help it. Sorry.
Just wait.
It's gonna be so fun. It's gonna be so fun.
I'm trying to think what has happened here. Not a lot happened, right? I think one thing I did want to say was Akamian, whenever we were in his head, I feel like he has a much more distinct voice now, or maybe I didn't notice it in the first books, but no, I think it has changed. This sad old man that he has become, who's just sort of given up on everything that he used to do, but he still has some reason to live and is pursuing vengeance in a very particular way, which Mimara thinks that he's just gone mad, and I think it's unclear to the readers whether that's true or not. But every time we're in his head, the writing just got so beautiful and distinct. I think the first 100 pages were beautiful in general. And I don't know, I think the first book had a lot of these beautiful sweeping descriptions, and maybe I got used to them by the time we got to the third book, but this book just felt different somehow from the previous trilogy in terms of the writing. And Akamian had so many beautiful things to say in this in these chapters. I just loved his perspective whenever we got that. Esmenet also, but I think it was very distinctly Akamian, all the beautiful comparisons and the more philosophical commentary, I guess.
I do feel like, bouncing off that, you can see in real time, not real time literally, but like you can see Bakker improve as a writer. Like I definitely feel like his prose is better. Everything is very like, it's like he's not perfected, but improved his voice. Like it still feels like the same kind of voice he had in the original trilogy, but it also like it reads better. And I feel like a lot of the colorful turns of phrase and things like that, just they flow that much better. And I really, that was something that distinctly stood out to me, just in general. Not even Acamians in particular, but I just thought it was really remarkable.
Yeah, I think this first 100 pages is incredibly well written. Some really beautiful passages infused with like some cool philosophical tidbits. Like there's the ongoing like ontological questions about like, you know, what's real, is God real, all that stuff. But I like how it's now like he's deepening it a little bit. Like sorcery is one thing, and there's the like semiotics and the semantics of sorcery, and I feel like now like it's being enriched a little bit by this new sort of vision, maybe the judging eye of Mimara, like this ability to see another another kind of truth. And he even, I think this is definitely a philosophical reference, or a reference to Saussure, I think. Like anyway, like Saussure, the semiotician who wrote about like the how there isn't a direct relationship between a thing and, you know, the signifier and the signified kind of thing. And he says that, you know, that there's nothing real connecting those two, that the relationship is arbitrary. And Mimara's like ability to like perceive the world, he even says at one point she sees the treeness of trees and feels like the essence of things in them when she looks upon them. And I don't know, I feel like it's all going, you know, it all goes nicely along with the idea of sorcery overriding reality. And I feel like it's just kind of enriching that whole system that he's been creating. I think it's really cool.
I totally agree. And it made me continue to wonder, right, about like what is real and baked into the metaphysics of this world versus what is the character's particular point of view, right? I mean, this is the question of like Kellis and his madness, right, and the halos and everything. And now we have Mimara, right, and the things she sees, and not just the mark, right, but that she has this like very like literal different perspective, right? That, yeah, maybe is the judging eye. I mean, I think that's a really astute observation. And the way she views the world was so distinct, was so different, that you have to wonder, is like, is this like a magical talent? You know, is this sort of supposed to be some like gender divide in the magic, or is this just specific to Mimara, or is this like, because I think there is also a reading of it that I initially thought it was, where it's like, this is her zealotry coming out, right? And her own like self-loathing and things like that. But then you get into it, and like with how the metaphysics of this story has played out, like, what is real, you know, like, are the things she's seeing, you know, as horrifying as they can be? And I think in parts beautiful, but certainly to me it was kind of scary. You know, I mean, again, it's like talking about the damnation of like the sorcerers, right? Like, if they are damned, like, which I'm increasingly wondering if that's true, you know. I kind of just like took it for granted that it wasn't, and it was just like one of their religious beliefs. But now I'm like, maybe they are, like, maybe they're actually, you know, screwed, to be crude about it. I'm very curious, yeah, to see, I guess, how the philosophical ideas, like, if they're actually like imbued into the metaphysics of this world, and how these characters interact with their own reality is literally like the horror story of their beliefs.
I think with Mimara, the question I had also was whether what she's saying, there's a certain aspect of interpretation to it too, right? She's seeing more brightness, and she can tell whether someone is good or evil based on how she perceives them. But there is also interpretation that, you know, this brightness means that this person is good, or whatever she's seeing in a Kamiyan means damnation. It seems like an instinctive conclusion that she's drawing, and that may be right as well. But I am also inclined to doubt her interpretation just a little bit. That I'm not taking her conclusions at face value. Like, that she can see this is very, very interesting, but what she concludes out of it, that I'm like, I'd like to see more examples of like it turning out to be true before I buy into what she's saying, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, yeah.
What did everyone think of the scalping years with the shrink?
So I want to know, is that a historical thing? Because I feel like I've seen that in other fantasy stories now, and like,
This was a real thing that happened in America. Manifest Destiny. Native Americans would be scalped.
oh,
Yeah,
wow.
money for scalps.
That's where I mean, I don't know if it's happened elsewhere in history, but that's the first thing that came to mind reading that.
Yeah, you all were talking about at some point reading McCarthy's Blood Meridian. That's part of the horrific action that happens in that story. So
we'll be reading that next month, I think.
Oh shit, I got to get my copy, because I'm definitely getting in on that.
So good. Oh man.
You definitely, I mean, yeah, again, going, you see Bakker's influences, and not in a way that's like annoying, you know, because he's always doing his own thing. He's always exploring his own ideas. But I appreciate that, like, he's also very like clear about his inspirations too, because I think it also lets you be, you know, this is something I think about as a writer, is like how much you're in discourse with other writers, and how, you know, sometimes I think it almost helps that discourse to like kind of nod your head a little bit, you know, do a little tip of the hat, and kind of seeing them playing with like similar ideas, but then like doing his own take and exploring his own versions of it. I think it deepens it, is what I'm getting at. It like deepens the conversation. It deepens the thematics.
Yeah. I mean, I think to, you know, go on a little tiny bit of a tangent, but like Bakker and McCarthy, you know, McCarthy was like like a legitimate polymathic genius, and he was like a physicist and a mathematician and philosopher, and like his writing is so rich because of all of those outside interests. He's always bringing them in. His last two books are like, they're about theoretical math, and I don't understand like any of that stuff, but it was so it was such a rich experience. And yeah, Bakker, the same thing. Like all of his, all of the philosophy that he's bringing into it is, I feel like it just, it really enriches the experience.
Did anyone else notice Varsha's face light up when you mentioned math? Numbers, yeah.
It did. I mean, Passenger and Stella Maris were already. I really, really badly want to read them for some reason, but I haven't gotten around to it. But this makes it, so I'll probably go pick it up immediately after this conversation. No, I won't. I'll bully Steve into reading it with me first.
So I have to mention Theliopa, who to me was immediately a very tragic character, and that I know if I'm in her head, I'm just gonna be like, oh, she's horrible. But from the outside, and I guess specifically from Esmenet's point of view, as we really get it, I just felt so sorry for her. I mean, she definitely read to me like, she doesn't like to be touched. Like there definitely was like elements of like where she seems like autistic, and she has this like super genius aspect to her, and she just doesn't fit in with anyone at court and like isolates herself. And she's very like, she has a very flat aspect. Very like the way she talks is very unemotional, but she feels things, and she was just so sad to see her. Like I think one of the things that is so talking about, like we talked about kind of the horror of Esmenet's her relationship with her children and motherhood, and also the other side of that, which is like the children's relationship with Kellis and Kellis's relationship with the children, right? And it's just so sad to think like, I can't even imagine the sort of mind games Kellis plays with his kids, right? Like I'm very curious to see how he interacts with them, because I can imagine it is very kind of Old Testament God in terms of being like, he can be very cruel, but also like he has his moments where he can be like very like loving and like, show, like, because he knows how to like press their buttons, right? And I'm curious too, I guess part of that is we've seen him in Moingus, right? And I'm curious with his kids who have these great gifts, in what ways can they spar? In what ways is there a challenge between them, right? Like Kelmomis, we've yet to see the older kids, I believe. We've only kind of heard about them through Esmenet's past, but I'm really curious to see how they all, what their relationship is like, and how I'm sure it's just so tragic. I can only imagine.
It was really interesting to me that the kids were born not feeling affection, like already with the Dunian characteristics that we've come to realize. The way I had pictured it so far was normal babies who are trained to have all emotion taken out of them. But it seems like they're born without any feeling, and that was genetically modified over the centuries, perhaps. But where I'm going with this is that to your point about interactions between Kellis and his children, I feel like, well, Calmumus hates Kellis, which is very, very interesting. He doesn't want to be around him, but Calmumus also feels, unlike I think pretty much all the other children, right? So
we don't know that.
We do, I thought. Well, except the survey and
like,
all of
because the way that they're, I don't know. In Realitas, his screaming definitely to me implies that he feels a lot, and he doesn't know how to like process it, and his dreams and his, he like, it's like he's in like a brain that isn't capable of like handling his gifts, like he has this sensory overload of his own Dunyan-ness.
Mhm. I guess love is the right word, maybe not feel, at least as Espinette perceives it.
Sure.
She only has these two children and Survey, who apparently express any affection that is visible to her. So yeah, I guess the conversations would already be interesting apparently because the kids knew what she was feeling. They could read her like a book always. So yeah, you said manipulate the heck out of his children, which is interesting, but can they manipulate him back? Is he
That's
susceptible to that?
exactly. That's the thing that, and because we know Kellis can feel sometimes, right?
Mhm.
And in some way he is broken out of his, like he's still, I think, good overall at doing the Dunyan logos shortest path of it all, but he has felt things, so we know he isn't perfect at cutting himself off from the darkness that comes before. And so yeah, I'm curious to see how they interact and like what does he think of his kids. Like we know he has affections for Esmenet, for example. Like it upsets him, he doesn't like it, he
Mhm.
like smothers it, but he feels something. And so yeah, I think that whole dynamic, I'm very curious to see it. Kalmomus in particular, maybe it's just because he's the only one of the kids' perspectives we've gotten, I believe. But he, to me, read very much like, oh, I could see this being what Kellis was like as a kid. You know, like we're getting like a point of view of like, this is what the boy was, and now you've seen the man. And I'd be curious to see how that again, the interplay between them, and that he hates his dad, right? That is such a curious dynamic, right?
Yeah, yeah. And he thinks that Mathanet sees through him, that he is basically, it's really interesting. Like it's such a contradictory and paradoxical position he is in, because he's apparently completed his whelming, which is that whole thing that we saw Callus go through, right? To um, do the meditative trance and become Dunyan, so to speak. So he's completed that, which means now he should be beyond feeling any emotion and be completely eliminate have the darkness that comes before completely eliminated from what moves him. And yet and yet he wants Esbenet's affection, and he is afraid that Mathanet can see through him. And he's manipulating Esbenet for more affection, which is again such a big paradox or contradiction there. He's using his Dunianness to get a thing that probably no Dunian would care about.
Yeah.
uh,
Well, I mean, I guess their conditioning is partially breeding and partially nurture, right? And so they're
mhm.
getting, they've got the bread portion of it, but they're not getting they're not looking at the flayed jaw muscles of human beings and all that fun stuff.
We did when we got the flashback of Kellis. We knew he was less controlled than as a kid. Like, so we definitely know it was something he learned at least partially over time. And so, yeah, I think we're definitely getting to see that kind of like the Dunyan out of their element per se, or outside of the training, and like what that looks like. And it also, one of the kind of thought experiment, I don't know if that's the right phrase, but like one of the aspects I appreciate about Kellis and about all of the sort of, we keep kind of like, or I certainly have kept like falling on the word like sociopathic when talking about him, and now like Kalmomus and just like that lack of like feeling like empathy, I guess, and that cold manipulation. But it has made me think about the ways in which we in our everyday lives sometimes, like the way we like kids manipulate their parents all the time is what I'm getting at, right? So it's like the fact that he's doing it more consciously, like how different is that though, really, from like a kid who's like crying because he wants his mom, you know? Like it's and in our social interactions every day, like they're not necessarily so callous. I certainly hope they're not so callous. Which I just realized, callous and callous, I don't know if that's intentional or not, but they're pretty close. Anyway, but like, you know, relationships are, you don't want them to be like transactional, right? Certainly not most relationships. You're healthy, you know, loving ones, but like there is an element of like give and take, I think. And so it's made me, I don't know, look inward and be like, kind of analyze human interactions in a way. And certainly, again, I hope none of them, or very few, ever like cross that kind of Dunyan line. But it's interesting to like pull back and think about like, well, in what ways is he just more conscious of doing the things that we do day to day?
You also have to, I mean, I'm guessing that the Dunyan have a system for kids that, you know, they go through all this rigorous training, but Kellis's kids don't have that. Doesn't seem like Kellis is really even around much. So who do they have to rein them in? They're kind of just at their own, left to their own devices with all these abilities.
Mm. And also, speaking of I guess Kellis doesn't want to contact the Dunyan again. Is he afraid they'll come for him like they sent him for his father? Because I mean, if he so badly wants to expand the number of children he has, why not summon some Dunyan women or something? I don't know. What is he just? That's only interesting in that there's no contact. But has there been no contact between him and the Dunyan in the last 20 years? And does he not want to make contact?
Yeah, I don't know if we know for sure yet.
I'm assuming they would not be happy with the way things are going.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I would be curious, like, what do they think about all of this? What do they even know? You know, they maybe don't know anything. Like, for all they know, Kellis is dead. Like,
yeah. He should just not do what Moingus did and send visions in the night.
Right, exactly. Like, what has he told them anything? Has he reached out? Like, it's interesting. I'd be curious to see if we get any of his perspective again.
I wonder about Kellis's teleportation abilities. Can he only go within line of sight? No, we did see him teleport over a largish distance.
Yep.
So can he teleport to Ishwal, grab some children or women and come back?
You know, it's an interesting. What if he killed them all?
What?
I mean, what if he was like, what if for whatever reason he thought like that was necessary? And I don't know that I necessarily think this happened, but I'm just throwing an idea out there because by our understanding of his teleporting magic, he probably could teleport right to Ishwal. You know, he knows where it is. He can picture it, right? And they're not powerful enough to stop him.
Yeah, they don't have any sorcery, and he's like the grand master of Gnostic sorcery. So yeah, he could probably waste all of them if he wanted to.
Food for thought. I don't know.
That's man. That's dark. Yeah.
That would be crazy if he did it. He genocided his own people. I mean, again, I could see it if he's like they're a threat and they're, you know, I have this holy mission and so I have to stop any threat. Because again, you like wonder like why haven't they done something? You know, why haven't they sent an agent out to check on Kellis? Right? They were anti-Moingus. We know that for a fact. So yeah, well, I'm very curious. I hadn't thought about it.
Am I correct in remembering that the only reason they sent Kellis after Moingus is because he sent them dreams?
Yeah.
Because he was just in exile. They were like, okay, you just can't ever come back because you're tainted.
Yeah.
You know, like leave and never come back. So for all they know, Kellis is still alive. And presumably Moingus is dead. You know, their presumption would be, but that he would.
Did they say Kellis can't come back?
Yeah, because everybody else who was tainted by the dreams, like all killed themselves.
Oh shit.
And Kellis, yeah, and then they sent Kellis into the world.
Wow.
I completely missed that. What?
Yeah, I missed that too.
It was early.
That's hardcore.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, they went into the like maze, the like lower maze of Ishwal and just like off themselves.
Wow.
Wow.
And they weren't sad about it because they're Dunyain.
Yeah. I want to know what the hell is up with Dunyain. I really thought we were going to find out more about them in the first trilogy, but I'm curious. They continue to be a mystery. Them and the No God are like the two big mysteries, I feel like, at this point.
Yeah, I'm so excited about Akamian's path because like he's on that path. Like he's
trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
So Steve, I'm curious, you on the board mentioned that you were really taken aback by the time jump in your first time reading through. So I'm just curious about the differences between your read throughs now, and like what was it about the time jump that really like threw you off?
I think last time it was because we had spent the 3 books kind of getting to that point, and then we had this big time jump. So it felt a little jarring to have this big gap of time between the end of the Thousandfold Thought and the beginning of the Judging Eye. But this time I think I appreciated more the kind of the catch up we did, like the filling in the blanks that Bakker's done in these first few chapters of what's happened. And I found it more interesting having the time jump and seeing how different the world is now, and you kind of wonder if Bakker wants us to think that it's a better world because Callus is in charge, or because overall, if it's a better world, is it a better place with Callus? Because there's these schools that, these women who are they're learning magic, they're doing sorcery, they're, Esmenet has a pretty big role in ruling, and I think that's this is one of the reasons that it makes me sad when people give up on the series because of Esmenet and they don't get to see her and how much she's grown and how really powerful she is as the series goes on. So I like seeing her after the time jump, and while her kids are, of course, her kids, I mean, they're, but she's a little helpless around them because they're Dunyain, they're half Dunyain, but she is respected for the most part, and she has a pretty big role. And I liked seeing that it's not just conquering, it's also ruling after, even 20 years after, or however many years. So I think all that's really interesting. I think it's more interesting than we would have had like another book in between to tell us this whole story. I think catching up is more interesting. But yeah, so this time isn't as jarring for me, the time jump. And I didn't expect it. I didn't know that there was a time jump when I first read it. So it was a little like, what's going on? But
that makes sense. I suspect, just like fully in this first of this quadrilogy, I'm throwing this out here, that I'm going to like this quadrilogy more than I like the trilogy, for 2 reasons. Really, actually, it's 1 reason. Well, I don't know. We'll see. One, we're going to get into...
Actually, it's half a reason.
It seems like we're going to get into all the really crazy fantasy shit, which I'm here for. Like the old lore, that kind of was in the background, like the consult, I really enjoyed the historical, like holy war elements, but I also felt like the politics weren't necessarily as well drawn and complex as I wanted, or I guess I should say a lot of the players didn't feel like it was Callus's story, right? We were watching Callus take it over. So I wasn't necessarily that invested in everything going on around him politically. And now I still think it's probably Callus's story, even though we've like barely seen him, which was true actually to the first book too. We only saw him in like the prologue, and then he disappeared for like 200 pages. But it's a family drama now, and I'm always here for a family drama. I'm very open about that. You could call the first trilogy a lot of things, but it was definitely not a family. I mean, there was the father-son element of Callus and Moingus, but like, that's not really, But now it's like this family is at the center of things, and I am here to see them be dysfunctional and messy. It's my favorite thing.
I would have never guessed that after reading your book.
Yeah. I've kind of, I mean, I working in entertainment, like trying to establish a career as a screenwriter. Sorry for this tangent. But you have to like pitch yourself, right? And so I like try to pitch myself oftentimes now as like I write like nerdy genre shit that's all like a family drama at its heart.
I can see
It's-
that. Yeah.
It's the shit I eat up. I love it.
You could argue that the first series had some family drama in the Survey, Esminette, Callus triangle thing, and Akamian, and those were my favorite parts, honestly. So if this is going to center around
It's
the
the generational aspect that's
Mhm.
missing for me. It's like you need the multiple generations for it to like hit that point.
Oh, interesting. Okay, fair.
Can I? Okay, so on the family tip, does anybody here besides me think that Moengus, or does everybody think that Moengus is actually Nair's kid?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Wait, yes, yeah.
Okay. I think it was pretty clear from the first series that because by the time she was pregnant, she hadn't slept with Kellis.
Yeah.
So
okay.
She was hallucinating. She was like almost imagining that Nair was Kellis, but it was definitely Nair. Kellis waited for a long time before he actually slept with her.
So I think that's a really cool like seed, for lack of a better word, that like, you know, in Moengus is like, you know, the promise that he'll eventually find out that he's not Kellis's heir, and that he has like Skilvendi blood in him, and you know, like maybe like Nair will like be back in some way, you know.
That's
speaking of, sorry, go ahead, Carl.
I was just saying that's interesting. I'm totally on board with that.
Yeah, I was wondering what the heck happened to the Sylvendi in all of this. The Aspect Emperor is the emperor of, like, what are the lands that he now rules, and are the Sylvendi's lands within the scope of his empire?
We have a map.
I did not look at it.
Yeah, they're well within. I mean, they're a little bit north, but yeah.
Oops, sorry.
Where?
Oh yeah, the Steppe is within Steppe. How you say it? The new empire, but there's no border. Is it all of it? Is the whole thing the empire? In which case, the Giunati steppe is in the empire.
Yeah.
So is he now ruling the Sylvendi? Is that what's going on?
I would guess.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I would be shocked. There were so few of them left, and they were like so broken up that it feels like an easy win for Kellis.
That's true. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and I made the mistake of thinking all Sylvendi are like Nair. They're not. They Nair has been Moengusified. Yeah. Is there anything else to discuss in these first 4 chapters? In which case, quote Steve, please. Pretty please.
I didn't have that many this week. I only had 2 on page 98, only by knowing, and this kind of ties into the darkness that comes before. Only by knowing what a man has been can you hope to say what he will be. And on page 101, have to remind myself this sometimes. There's no knowledge in the shadow of hate.
Nice. I like that. I had one pretty Akamian line that, well, I had several, but I'll only do a couple so I don't bore all of you with all the quotes. Yeah. Oh man. I don't know. Someone else do quotes while I look for the ones I highlighted.
I underlined a couple, I think, from that same section that Steve, you were just quoting from, where Mamara is talking about Akamian, and she says, The way people speak is a bound thing, as far from free as a slave or a horse. Place binds it, occasion binds it, but other people rule it most of all. The shadow of name lies hidden in every word spoken. Which is some, real
Wow.
darkness that comes before shit.
I like that. Ooh, I found one. This is when he has the dream of Ch.4 sleeping with the concubine. Not all facts are equal. Some hang like leaves from the branching of more substantial truths. Others stand like trunks, shouldering the beliefs of entire nations. And a desperate few, are seeds.
So this isn't like a deep quote, but I think it's really interesting, potentially on a thematic and like a foreshadowing level. That the opening of chapter 1, the epigraph, upon the high wall the husband slept, while round the hearth the women wept, and fugitives murmured tales of woe, of greater cities lost to Mogfaro. And this is from the sagas, right? I think this is interestingly placed because the whole chapter is about Kellis' forces going and overrunning a city. And so I think it's a very intentional parallel, right? Lining him up with the no god.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and with the possible possession. I don't know why I'm calling it possession, but like possible possession of Kellis by the no god.
That's what I'm saying is I think there's potentially that's alluding to their connection and that there being a more distinct. I mean, I think thematically it's certainly there, that like the idea of this like conquering force, but also, yeah, the possession or their connection, whatever that looks like, whatever that is, however it's defined. Also, it makes you wonder, right? What is the no god, right? If in some way Kellis is a parallel figure in any way, as sort of this almost like force of nature, right? Was the no god a man at one point? What was his deal? What's his story?
Yeah, that is interesting. I have one more. Trying to forget, trying not to hear when your deepest ears were continually pricked was almost as difficult as trying to hate away love. This is page 47.
I like that one. It's a good one.
Yeah, it's very beautiful. I'm very much looking forward to more of this. I am a little happy that The Great Ordeal is the third book in the series for two reasons. One, that the war that Kellis is leading up to is maybe not the end game. There's more after that. And the other, that maybe will be the battle scenes will be toned down a little bit until then.
I'm curious what White Luck Warrior means too. Going off the titles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I suspect it has to do with Kellis because a lot of the titles seem to, but what the hell is the White Luck?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, intriguing too that the last book is the unholy console. Like, what does that mean? That's such a delicious promise.
Right. And so just a quick question to the group before we leave. So when you read series that are finished and you know the titles ahead and you see names early on, that makes it really interesting for me. Like with Malazan, for instance, the Cripple Gore is the 10th book, but we find out, I think the term is first used, at least the one when I noticed in the third book, right? So we know that the last book is called The Unholy Consult, but we know what the consult are within the first book. So like I feel like we get a sense of where we are going when we know these titles, sort of, but yeah, it just makes it very interesting for me. Like, does that change anything for you guys knowing the titles ahead for finished series?
It excites me. I mean, I think it's like a promise, you know, like this is what we're building up to. Yeah, it builds excitement.
Yeah, it fuels my totally irresponsible speculation.
And yeah, I mean, you know, again, like referencing, you know, A Song of Ice and Fire again, like the next book, if it ever comes out, the fact that it's called Winds of Winter, like that makes me excited. And the last book is called A Dream of Spring, if it ever comes out, is, you know, like that also makes me excited because I'm like, oh, they're not all gonna die. Like there's some, it's a dream of spring, but still, like that's better than like the corpses in winter, you know, like I'll take it. So it makes me hopeful. It makes me willing to hope, as opposed to this series ending with the unholy consult. I'm like, all right, here we go.
Yeah. Is it also slightly that? Yeah, maybe it's not telling us that you don't really know what's going on with the consult until the very end, what their end game is. But
Unless, I mean, I feel like we have a decent idea of what's going on with them.
yeah,
It's the no god, I feel like, that I'm really unclear on. Although I guess again, everything we've been told has just been, hasn't been from their like mouths. Well, kind of. They do allude, like they talk about like mass murder and like cleansing the world and shit. So I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, the other thing that was dropped in the what came before section was that I don't know if this was mentioned in the book explicitly, but apparently the consult were on their way to resurrecting the no god within 20 years. That
Yes.
yeah.
That was huge. Yes.
And we started 20 years later. I don't think it was mentioned. Like, I don't think it was part of Moingus's conversation. If it was, I completely missed it. But in this recap, we find out that they were on their they were on track to meet some goals 20 years later.
You're so right.
Mm-hmm. So Kellis is headed to Golgotha, where do you think that the no god is being resurrected as they march? Steve knows, but won't share. Yeah.
I do. It occurs to me as we're talking about this, the whole plan of like conquering the world to fight them off. I feel like a lot of people are going to die in that process, and if that's their end goal, the consults, you're kind of helping them. And I mean, like if they just need to wipe people out to like, I guess there's a balance of like killing hundreds of thousands to save untold millions. I don't know. I don't know where the line in the sand is for summoning the no god, but or not even summoning the no god. It's for breaking the boundary, right? Or making a boundary between the whatever, the outside and Hero.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, Kellis is not the guy I want in charge of the trolley problem for the entire world. Yeah.
No.
Oh, that's hilarious. There's yeah, so Akamian has that's why we stopped, right? This section that Mimara tells him that Kellis is headed to Golgotha, and Akamian, I think I read it as a moment of terror, has a moment of terror that Kellis is headed there. So ooh, is this where Kellis becomes the no god? Anyway, mindless speculation aside, let's do outros, I guess. Unless was there anything anyone wanted to?
Final theories.
Yes.
If anyone has final theories, final speculation, I'm going to bring back my old one that I think I brought up maybe in our very first chat. I think the oh my god, I want to say the horn. That's not right. The tusk.
The tusk.
Oh.
You know what? I said it was a dragon thing, and then I found out dragons were made, so maybe it isn't a dragon tusk. I don't know. It's the tusk of some giant monster, and I hope we find out what. That's it. All right. Theories.
Gianter mastodons.
Yes, even bigger mastodons.
Okay, so I'll do my crazy theory, I guess. Then the Kelis goes to Golgotha and becomes the no god.
I dig it.
I love that. I remember from reading in the appendices that the Heron Spear was lost when the Skelvendi raided some Kuniric kingdom, and has been lost for like 800 years or something like that. So I don't know. I don't have any like wild speculation about it, but other than that, it will be found, and I don't know.
For sure. I support that theory. It's got to come back. They've talked about it too much. Bring the laser gun back.
Like, where is it? I'm so curious where they're gonna find it. You know.
Oh, that's what you guys were calling laser gun last time. I had no idea.
They're weapons of light. They're like called weapons of light, and things like that. We know they have like far future, like sci-fi tech, and like when you think about it, you're like, oh, it's like shooting, or maybe it extends into like a light blade. I don't know, but like it's sci-fi shit.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. So, outros then. We'll start with Justin.
I'm Justin. I am sort of on page chewing and not really on social media, and sometimes on midnightmovietrain.com.
I'm Carl. You can find me on social media if you really want to at Carl D. Albert most places, I think, and on page chewing where I would rather you find me. And you can find my book, Truth of Crowns. Again, just look it up.
And I'm Steve, and I'm high on cold meds currently, but yeah, so you can find me on pagetuning.com, join our forums if you'd like to chat with us, and come by and say hello. And we will be talking with Carl here soon about his book and getting into the nitty-gritty and all of the tragedy and sadness that comes along with it.
Yeah, I just added one to my list of questions for Carl from today's conversation. So yeah, and you can find me on the Page Chewing forum as well, hanging out, asking people to join read-alongs and maybe losing money at blackjack lately. Not money, points, just points. Every time I say money and then I self-correct to say points. The stakes are lower than I'm making them in my head. But if you'd like to join us for these discussions, either here on this group or on the forum, consider checking out the Page Chewing forum. Next week, we're going to be talking about chapters 5 through 8. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you in about a week. Bye.